The Charlotte Hornets lose again last night. They also lose a prominent figure within the organization. We discuss all of it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. That's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ, Sports Radio 92.7 FM every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. I'm coming at you from a new angle, quite literally, with where the camera is set up. Yeah. I'm on the road. I'm in Boston. I'm here for the Army-Navy game, and so I'm set up in a Marriott hotel. The different angle, it's really kind of right up my nose.
It's kind of up your nose. You're sort of looking down on me a little bit. No, you're clean. You're clean.
Do I have any bugs?
Yeah, you're clean. No, I'm looking.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, this is weird right here. This is weird. This is always, you've done the road thing a couple times. I've done it a few times, but it's been a while. But we're still bringing you daily content because that's how committed we are. We're here to talk about another Hornets loss, Doug. That's what we do. We talk Hornets losses on this podcast. It happened again. They lost last night to the Chicago Bulls, 111-100. And despite the Bulls, but they were struggling. I made the joke yesterday that they were struggling right off the rip because you had a players-only meeting after one game. That's the joke, but it's hilarious to me still. They had won 2 games coming into this contest. This is now Chicago's 3rd straight win, so they are playing better as of late. All that to say, we still felt like this could be a get-right game. I know you called it that. Mm-hmm, it was not a get-right game for the Charlotte Hornets. It was a get-right game for Chicago.
Well, I don't think people heard me clearly on the last episode. I said it was a get-right game in the sense that the Hornets should get right to work on finding a new front office. They should get right to work on retooling this roster because what a miserable shooting night for the Charlotte Hornets that was only salvaged by a fourth quarter in which they scored 36 points. But this was on the way to be, Steve Clifford likes to say that this team has played well offensively this season, but if you look at the offensive rating, it's not very good. But he likes to say that there were 3 awful games that have dragged that offensive rating down. Well, now it was on the verge of adding a 4th. I mean, I think you still add a 4th here because they only managed to score 100 points. Got off to a bad start before the game even tipped off because Mark Williams, who was listed as questionable with a lower back bruise, contusion, was declared out. And you're playing a team that has 2 pretty good centers in Vucevic, and then they call Andre Drummond off the bench to just gobble up a bunch of offensive rebounds, and that's exactly what he did in the fourth quarter when the Bulls needed to seal it. It was Drummond, and it was Alex Caruso coming out of nowhere to get offensive rebounds. Hornets couldn't shoot. Bulls could shoot. That was the game.
Yeah, it was. And they didn't even take a million three-point attempts. I mean, the Hornets took 12 more three-point attempts, Doug, and made 2 less than what Chicago did. That is an excellent recipe for you to just go ahead and lose that game with how bad they shot. Gordon Hayward, he was off to a rough start, if I'm not mistaken, just shooting-wise, but then got going 10 of 18, 2 of 4 from three-point range. Brandon Miller, rough shooting night from him overall. Did hit 3 of his 6 from distance, but inside that three-point arc, not really falling for him, just 1 of 8. And then you see even Miles Bridges, he got off to a rough start as well. And so that was the thing. They were able to salvage some of their efficiency, but it was already too late. They started hitting shots a little bit later. They had the 36-point fourth quarter, but I mean, they already dug themselves into that hole that they were not able to climb out of. No Mark Williams in this game, as you mentioned. Nick Richards, he gets the start at center. They have a bunch of blocks. Nick Richards, had 12 rebounds in this one, 6 offensive rebounds. But Doug, offensive rebounds are both key for the opposition when they play Charlotte and for the Hornets themselves, because you have 2 guys. Nick Richards, even more so last year, we could see it, one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. Well, Mark Williams has been that this year, but it's the defensive rebounds that you would like to see more of. Nick had more offensive rebounds than he did defensive rebounds in this game. And then you have Mark Williams, who's third in the league, at least last week or maybe earlier this week when I checked. He was third in the league, third in contested offensive rebounds. But it's the defensive boards, Doug. It's the defensive boards that they're not so hot at.
No, 21 offensive rebounds in total for Chicago. I mentioned the fourth quarter. They allowed 11 offense. One of them was I went back and watched all of those for some reason, and one of them was a joke. That was not an offensive rebound. It was a strip that Drummond managed to get back. It was not an offensive rebound, but just call it 10. 10 offensive rebounds is way too many, especially in a fourth quarter where you're trying to pull off a miracle comeback. I mean, they took the lead down to 10 with about 3.5 minutes to go, and then 2 straight possessions they allow offensive rebounds that really kind of sealed things up for Chicago. These have been the issues all year, but 21 is just way too many. You're not going to beat many teams allowing 20-plus offensive rebounds. But they had a chance because the Bulls only turned those 21 into 16 points. I think, Clifford mentioned after the game, the turnover situation could have actually been probably the bigger issue because in the third quarter, so I mean, you go into the half, you're only down 4, and they had an opportunity to come out in that second half and get things right, and they didn't because they just kept turning the ball over time after time. And it's those deadly above the free throw line turnovers. You're not trying to get paint entry or anything like that. It's Terry Rozier dribbling off his foot. It's lazy passes around the perimeter. And I said it in the preview. The Bulls don't have like some kind of excellent high-powered offense. You cannot give that team easy opportunities, and there were 4 or 5 possessions where it was just free layup, free dunk for the Bulls. It's just you're not going to win. You're not going to win a game like that, and until the Hornets figure all of that out, it's looking at the schedule. It's not going to get easier. It's going to get worse for the Hornets before it gets better.
My last observation is when you go to the box score and you watch the game, you go to the box score, you take note of all the things that happened. And it looked like a college box score here, Doug. And the reason it looked like a college box score, because they only went to 6 players with Ish Smith and Bryce McGowan's playing about 15 minutes apiece. They had a 6-man rotation that Steve Clifford trusted last night. That is college basketball 101. Where
that's old school 90s NBA. That's 90s NBA basketball too. Doing this in early December. If you go back and just look at the Muggsy days, the Alonzo LJ days, they were only playing 6 or 7 guys. That was just how it was done, and guys were playing 38 minutes a night.
Well, yeah, and so just in reference, Chicago, they played 11 guys. They had Craig, Drummond, Carter, Dosunmu. They all were in the rotation, and you played 6 that that you trusted. Ish Smith played 14, Bryce McGowan's played 16, but just so many injuries. We mentioned Mark Williams. You also didn't have Nick Smith Jr. You also didn't play Teo, right? Like JT Thor, DNP CD too. Some injuries that you're battling as well. So it was. Well, this
is a good point, right? Because you get nothing from Ish Smith in 14. Well, you get a bunch of blow-bys by whoever was attacking him. He was just a revolving door to the rim for the Chicago Bulls. But no points from him. 3 assists, 1 rebound in those 14
Not even
minutes.
A field goal attempt.
Not even a field goal attempt. And and Ish in previous games, when the Hornets could not attack the rim, he's actually been someone that's been a consistent contributor in that respect. You get nothing from him. You get only 2 field goal attempts for Bryce McGowan, who just recently started a game and looked hot from 3. Couldn't find him at all. So, look, inconsistencies off the bench has also been a story for this team. It continues as I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look like they have it all together. And it looks like it's also like physically killing Steve Clifford. Like he's screaming.
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen the clip, but if not, I'll throw it up on the screen. Steve Clifford screaming at Nick Richards at one point. Nick, set the bleeping screen. It was on a baseline out of bounds play that was just a disaster. Talk about college. It looked like college. It was a disaster of a baseline out of bounds play. Nick does not set a screen at all. Nobody's open. The ball is desperately given to Nick Richards, who holds it. There's only 5 seconds left on the shot clock. He holds it for 2 and then throws a grenade to Brandon Miller, who has to heave it up, and it gets blocked. I want to hold on. I want to talk about this more. Can we do this? And then I want to like focus on this clip because I think it's the funniest thing that we've seen all year. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Oh my!
I want to talk a little bit more about the Steve Clifford clip of him just about to lose it. I joked earlier this week, if he had any hair, Steve Clifford would have pulled it out already. He would have done that in this clip with Nick Richards. And so we'll get to that in a moment. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. I need to get to FanDuel because it's cold in Boston. I got off the plane and it hit me in the face. It slapped me like Steve Clifford wanted to slap Nick Richards yesterday. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, even more than that. And so we could bet the buzz at some point, I would imagine. We're going to bring it back. We promise, I don't know if we're going to keep the promise, but they play the Toronto Raptors tomorrow. Maybe we can do it there. When we do bet the buzz, when that happens, we go to FanDuel because we love it so much. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. Also, partake in the NBA season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. More Locked On Hornets ahead. We really should do this because it's right up our alley as a podcast. But we should start collecting the funniest clips of the season and then have this big old fun show. We can't even keep our bet the buzz or 30 list promises, but in theory, it sounds like a good idea. This clip right now, if we were to just do a nice little checkpoint on the most comedic moments of the season, this one would be it for me. Steve Clifford yelling at Nick Richards, Nick, set the bleeping screen. He has had it, Doug. He is at his wit's end. There is no more wit to journey on. He is at his wit's end right now. Mark Williams, with all the frustration that we've had with his inconsistencies, okay? You can't go to another center. We just talked about the lack of depth, especially with all of the injuries. So you have to rely on Nick Richards to play all of the center minutes unless you want to go PJ small ball 5. But other than that, that's about it. This is it. This is what you got. You got Nick Richards, and he's not setting screens. Steve Clifford wants him to set the screens. He's going to curse at you when he wants you to set the screens. And I laughed my bleep off, Doug. I thought that clip was hilarious, and I feel bad for my head coach right now.
Well, listen, I'm going to avoid any kind of Nick Richards analysis here and just really kind of stick with this Steve Clifford video, because if you've ever made your parents this angry, you know that look that's in Steve Clifford's eye, and you know that facial expression that he's making, and it sends a chill down your spine because you know something has changed, because there's regular mad, there's like annoyed, there's frustrated, and then there's just like regular old mad, and then there's this next level angry that oops, I've pushed this person too far and I need to apologize immediately. That's where Steve Clifford's face, when he screams, you can see a subtle little shake of his head. Like his head sort of jiggles. He's screaming so loudly. And I don't even think he's screaming, because if you watched the game last night, United Center, you could drop a pin and hear it. You could hear everything that Donovan was saying. You could hear everything that Clifford was saying. I don't know, the Bulls have killed the United Center. That place was rocking in the 90s, and the United Center completely dead, just like the Spectrum Center. And so, he did not need to scream that loud, is what I'm saying. And it was just totally unnecessary, except for the fact that this man is over it, that he has been pushed to the brink, because what Nick Richards did not do on that play is such a basic thing, is such a fundamental thing, is such a thing that players do out of reflex. And I'm sure whatever play was called there, they've practiced many times. And Nick Richards doesn't do the simple thing, which is set a screen for somebody with 5 seconds left on the shot clock on a baseline out of bounds play.
I think for me, it's the pointing at the spot. I think when he's yelling, it's him pointing. Because it's like, this is the most, he's acting like this is the simplest thing I could ask you to do. This is elementary. This is a first grader could set this screen at this spot because we've worked on it a million times. That you can tell that is so much practice at that play, and you could also tell it's not the first time that he messed it up. This has been happening for quite a while, but it's so simple to Steve Clifford. He's saying, hey, go over there, cover your crotch, and rub shoulders with your offensive player and block the defender from the guy on ball. Do that here and bleeping do it here. And I feel for him, and it's hilarious. The pointing, it's all phenomenal to me.
You know how I know he's really mad? I can see every single one of his teeth in that replay. Every single one.
I like a full breakdown of all of that. Yeah. So Steve Clifford, maybe we can. Do we want to take a break and then go to the Fred Whitfield stuff? Because maybe there's a Steve Clifford combo to be tied in here. What else do you want to talk about in this segment?
Well, I was called into the Hornets Twitter principal's office. I do have that on the sidebar there.
I thought when you had principal's office, I thought Nick Richards was called into the principal's office, but you were called into the principal's office. Okay, so was somebody yelling at you to set the screen as well?
Yeah, it was the principal of Hornets Twitter. I got called into his office. It's our good friend, our family member, friend of the show, family of the show, Nada Edwards. So here's what I tweeted.
Oh, no.
I kind of want your opinion on this because it's kind of like I got called to the principal's office.
Oh, wait, you want to bring me into this?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do any of this.
Because here's what happened. I got called into the principal's office. I got yelled at, and I got to come home to mom and say, listen, here's what happened, and see if you're going to defend me or if you're going to take the school's side. Okay, so here's what I tweeted. After the Hornets lost, I tweeted this. Caleb Martin's 24-point, 12-rebound, double-double leads the Miami Heat to a win over a 9-win Raptor team.
Okay.
DSJ's on-ball defense and vocal leadership are lauded in a close Brooklyn win over a 9-win Atlanta team. Hornets lose by 11 to an 8-win Bulls team.
Okay.
To which Nada replies, respectfully, DSJ is fair game. Caleb Martin is at best a cheap shot. So that was me getting called in the principal's office. He says, I didn't put any commentary in this. This was without commentary. I just listed a couple of facts for people to digest however they would like to digest it. And Nada saying at best, I don't know what it means. I don't know what that means. I don't know what worst is, that my mentioning Caleb Martin in this tweet is at best a cheap shot.
I don't know. I don't want to side with anybody here. I don't know. What do you want? I do think DSJ, if we were to compare the two, if we were to really dissect it, DSJ is more fair game because we got to see what he did with the Hornets, and that's why it was so frustrating. That's why it was frustrating in real time when we saw him go to Brooklyn. They made him a priority, and the Charlotte Hornets did not. We did not see this coming with Caleb Martin. At the same time, I know, like, for Twitter, I just avoid all serious combo there because you can't have one. So I imagine you do a little bit of that. It seems like that's a little bit of jokey, but also some seriousness baked into the joke.
You're dead on because I'm not really having a conversation. When I say wrong twin, there is a little bit of a joke there. It is this idea that we're just being punished because the Hornets always pick the wrong guy, even when if you fairly evaluate that situation, obviously Cody Martin was the guy that you would side with, and they didn't know that all of this injury stuff was going to happen. But my overall sort of point here is that it's difficult to watch the Hornets play like this and then see name after name come across your Twitter timeline of former Hornets having success. And the DSJ one in particular is egregious on a night in which they could have used some on-ball defense against Caruso. Kobe White was getting threes. Ayo Dosunmu, they kept going under screens on Ayo Dosunmu. That guy's shooting above 40% from three this year. It's he's not historically a three-point shooter, but if you get a scouting report on this guy this year, he's hitting three-point shots, and they're just going under screens like he can't shoot. And so, I would love some aggressive on-ball defense, and they had all they had to do, this is crazy to me, all they had to do was pick up the phone. And Brooklyn picked up the phone first. They made him a priority. Hornets offered him more money. But all DSJ wanted was the same thing that Kelly Oubre wanted. He just wanted to be wanted. And the Hornets did not make him a priority, which is insane because he's the exact thing they need.
Well, right. And nobody, to be fair to the Hornets, because we have to be fair. To be fair, the Hornets, nobody wanted Kelly Oubre. by free agent market. Nobody wanted him until Philadelphia came in with the vet min or whatever it was. DSJ, apparently they did. And he was one of the first signings, and Brooklyn did. And, we were looking at this too. Actually, I side with Nada. Go Nada. I'm with you,
Mom.
Nada. Go ahead.
Mom, you don't understand.
Nope. You behave. When you go to school, behave, and you won't get called into the principal's office. That's what my message is for you. But last thing on DSJ, we were discussing this on WFNZ. They finished well defensively in the second half of the last season. They are awful defensively here. I think the biggest difference is DSJ. Doug, remember how much we would check in on his advanced stats, just leading the league in some of the point of attack defense that he was providing for this team? Not, oh, yeah, he's like top 15. Oh, not he's in the 8th percentile. No, DSJ in some of the defensive metrics and just good old-fashioned eye test was like the best point of attack defender, top 2, top 3. Like those stats portrayed him as that good. And the defense takes a big old hit without having him here.
At the end of last season, when, they're going to third string guys, injuries everywhere, and they're playing a Dallas Mavericks team with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, a team that is on the brink of either making or missing the postseason. And they beat that team. And a lot of it was DSJ. And after the game, DSJ, former team, Dallas, says, we put their bleep in the dirt. He had an attitude. Last night, Mikal Bridges says DSJ is one of Brooklyn's vocal leaders. What do the Charlotte Hornets need right now? They need more vocal leaders. They need more attitude, and they let DSJ go. And I said in the offseason, before they made that indecision, I said in the offseason, if the Hornets are serious about being a postseason team, then they'll bring back Dennis Smith Jr. And they didn't. And I did not. What I witnessed last night against the Chicago Bulls, I think Clifford was super serious, but I did not witness a team that I think is a serious basketball team in general, but certainly not serious about making the playoffs. And I think, I think the ownership group should get right to work on figuring that out.
So it's settled. Principal Edwards is right on this. I side with Principal Edwards. All right,
whatever, Mom.
Go to your room. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
That's how you do it.
We talk about a prominent figure in team president Fred Whitfield stepping down in his role and leaving the Charlotte Hornets organization. We'll get to that in just a moment. Not before Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. And with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball with the Specials League. It's a league created specifically for combo projections on this daily fantasy sports platform, the best one in the game. Combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James, Travis Kelce, a 10.5 combo, maybe 3-pointers made plus receptions. If you want to keep it local, I would go with Chuba Hubbard rushing yards and maybe Brandon Miller points. Pick the more than on that if you want to stick with the Hornets and the Panthers. And Prize Picks also even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. We know how big of a deal that is if you're going to stay local here too. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
Before we get to Fred Walker, I did mention the schedule that the Hornets have coming up, and I just want to run through some games. I'd like you to stop me when I get to a game that you're not terrified of, okay? So that we'll play this little game really quickly. All right. And just yell stop when you get to a game that you're not terrified of. December 8th against the Raptors. December 11th against the Heat, December 13th against the Heat, December 15th against Zion, Brandon Ingram, and the New Orleans Pelicans and that Jordan Hawkins guy, December 16th against the Philadelphia 76ers. Did you yell stop yet? I haven't heard. Did you yell? No?
I haven't. Nope. Everything's
December
good.
18th against the Raptors, December 20th against the Pacers, December 23rd against the Nuggets, December 26th against the LA Clippers. We're about to head into the new year here. Oh, we just celebrated Christmas. December 28th, hope you got something good under the tree. December 28th against the Los Angeles Lakers, December 29th against the Phoenix Suns. January 1st, new year, happy 2024. Hope you got to kiss someone on New Year's. January 1st, Denver Nuggets. January 2nd, Sacramento Kings. January 5th, Chicago Bulls. January 8th, Chicago Bulls. January 10th, Sacramento Kings. January 12th, San Antonio Spurs.
Stop for sure.
Okay.
Chicago,
January
I thought
12th.
about. Chicago, I might say stop too, because that could be blow up territory. So you're talking about Chicago possibly having, whoever off of the team. Honestly, I could have just ruined the bit immediately, but I decided to let you go. Toronto's a weird team. If maybe they could come away with this at home at Spectrum Center. Toronto 9-12. They're 3-6 away from Toronto. They've lost 4 of their last 5. The one win they have is actually against Phoenix. But yeah, as I would say, maybe Toronto, and then you could do the bid again, and then we'd still end up with San Antonio. Yeah, point taken. Schedule not kind. That's why we thought it was such a big point for them to start well, because the schedule in the first 10 games before Miles returned, schedule was easier. And they really did not produce at the level we wanted them to.
So right now they're 6-13. They're 7 games under 500. I don't know why, but I just do feel like the 10 games under 500. There's like a psychological thing there. We our numbers are just based on 10, and I just wonder if they get 10 or more games under 500, if something sort of unlocks with the organization to say, okay, enough is enough. Because Tepper got to that point with Frank Reich for some reason. I don't know what happened there, but something always happens that you say, okay, enough is enough. And whether it's a blowout loss, an embarrassing loss, that Bulls game had that potential, or if it's 10 games under 500, but I think we're nearing that point. And when I look at that schedule, again, LaMelo Ball is going to come back at some point, but what's he going to come back to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and plus they'll lose games with LaMelo. It doesn't matter if he does really well; they'll still lose, with LaMelo on the roster. All right, let's talk Fred Whitfield, Doug. So we got some news yesterday. It actually broke as we were going off of the air. So about 3 p.m. yesterday, this news came in. Charlotte Hornets president Fred Whitfield, longtime top-level executive overseeing the franchise emergence in Charlotte as the Bobcats, the reemergence, if you will, and his tenure, who spanned over multiple owners, announced yesterday that he's stepping down as team president and vice chairman. Rod Boone having this on the Charlotte Observer, plenty of other publication. Go check out a little bit more. So Hornets.com also has a write-up on this. So Fred Whitfield, longtime friend of Michael Jordan, actually turning into a minority owner also, steps away. And so this is his quote, Fred Whitfield's quote himself. For the past 17 and a half years, I've had the privilege of representing the Charlotte Hornets as a president, vice chairman, and ultimately minority owner. But the time has come for me to step away and focus on my health and my family. As these priorities have occupied more of my time and energy, I realize that now is the right time to leave my role with the Hornets, who are now on a tremendous path to success with the energy and ideas brought by our new owners, Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin. I'm grateful to them for their support during this challenging time, and I also want to thank the prior ownership groups under the leadership of Bob Johnson and Michael Jordan for giving me such a tremendous opportunity. Pretty big giant within the Hornets organization over what was close to the last 20 years. Here's what I'll say real quickly. Mm-hmm. Man, he had an interview with Mac and Bone that was really reflective. And I think we discussed that a little when Rod Morrow of the Black Guy Who Tips podcast, he joined us. And really reflective in a way that he was candid, shared a lot of information. We did not know that he was battling cancer. That was not public knowledge. And he dropped it on everyone in that interview for Street Turkeys, one of the biggest shows, the biggest days for WFNZ. The Hornets do a great job. They, I think, donate $5,000 to those in need. And Fred Whitfield always spoke at those events. Any charitable event, he was speaking. at Cornucopia event, where the Hornets also feed the community and just get a ton of food, tons of money, tons of snack goods for anybody that needs it. Fred Whitfield with a smile on his face, man, every single time. One of the nicest humans that I've ever interacted with. Mm-hmm. Matt Doherty, also involved with the Hornets organization for a while, said the one word is class. And that's what Fred Whitfield brought to the table every single time. This community is going to miss him in that role. He did a lot for this team. If we celebrate Michael, the philanthropist, and what he brought to the community because of his donation, because of opening Novant Health clinics in poverty-stricken areas of town, Fred Whitfield was right alongside him every single step of the way. And so the biggest of salutes to Fred Whitfield for helping this team reach out and embrace the community as well as they did, because they've done as good a job of that as any team in the NBA, and it couldn't have happened without Fred Whitfield. So really appreciate him for everything he did, and the best of luck in whatever he decides to do post Charlotte Hornets day-to-day operations.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the business of Spectrum Center is the business of Charlotte. And so for the Charlotte, obviously philanthropy is super important. We celebrate Jordan for that, but also bringing business to the city of Charlotte is important for people that live in Charlotte and live in that community. And so they did a great job of making Spectrum Center into, a first-class place to hold a big event. And I think that is important, and Fred Whitfield was a big part of that. And 17 years is a long time to spend with any organization. Now, saying all of that, I think timing is everything, and I think that, this organization is going to go through a slow transition out of the Michael Jordan era and all of the people that Michael Jordan brought to this organization to work for it. I'm sure some of them will stay, but I'm also sure that a lot of them because Michael Jordan moved to a minority owner role and has a relationship with the new ownership group. It wasn't like, one of these things where the new owners come in and just clean house immediately. This was going to be, they even sort of telegraphed that this was going to be a slow and methodical process. And I think that the timing of this, is something to comment on, in that it is probably, and as I think Mike Lassett had some reporting that a source told him that this is, sort of the first of many to come in terms of departures or changes for this organization. And I think it's the right move because, look, they're going to be moving into a new era where they need to negotiate to get this new practice facility done and do some other things. And it's probably a good thing to have some new voices, some new creativity moving into the organization. And with all the health concerns that Fred Whitfield has going on right now, it obviously is a good time for him as well to make the move. But yeah, I think everyone was celebrating what he's done business-wise for the team and for the city of Charlotte under bad circumstances, right? I mean, this team is not good. I think it's easier to sell Spectrum Center if the Hornets are packing it every night, they weren't. And so he was able to even sort of get through those circumstances to do some good business for Charlotte. And I think that's a good thing.
And stepped up to the plate during election time, stepped up to the plate during the pandemic, what the Charlotte Hornets did during times that were unforeseen. The fact that Fred Whitfield was spearheading a lot of that with Michael, I think it says a lot about him. And I know a lot of people are saying, hey, get ready, there's going to be a lot of changes. That's true. I'm not disputing that whatsoever. There's actually reporting here. You can believe it or not, but I do. It makes all the sense in the world. The timing for him, as I mentioned, how reflective that interview was, we did not know, and then we came to know just a couple weeks ago that he had an 18-month battle, successful battle, by the way, which is huge, successful battle from, battling throat cancer over the last year and a half. And they kept that quiet. And now I think his mom is battling some health issues. And so timing might be that ownership is giving him a nudge saying, hey, this seems like a great time to move on for both of us. That might be true. It also just might be true for Fred Whitfield himself. Like he might not have thought on that and said, hey, look, this is about it for me, at least with my role as it is right now. And this is a great time for myself. I do wonder if maybe Fred Whitfield is the one that actually starts this conversation. Not say that he didn't see the writing on the wall, but that's a lot. I'm just saying he went through a ton, and it would make sense to step away. Not any of these coaches that say they want to hang out with their family a little more and then take a broadcasting job 5 months after that. this seems like he really, hey, it would make sense for him to spend more time with whatever family that he needs to spend time with.
Well, I'll also say this, that Michael Jordan, when he was the majority owner, was the only black majority owner in the NBA. And he brought a lot of diversity in the executive level of the NBA via the team. And Fred Whitfield was a part of that. And as we see some of these departures happening, I hope that Schnall and Plotkin kind of recognize that and feel a sense of responsibility to continue to bring some diversity to the executive ranks of the NBA. And we talked about this when Michael Jordan stepped down as majority owner, but I think like the NBA should feel a responsibility and other teams should feel a responsibility also to, especially in these top like executive roles, to make sure that there is some more diversity being put out through the NBA. So I think we should recognize that as well.
Wait, yeah, you're saying, we go from only black owner in the NBA to 2 white owners. Wait, that's different. that's going the wrong way. Yes, you're absolutely right. Hopefully those Gabe Plotkin and Rich Schnaub, hopefully both of them understand the role that they have here as owners and bringing some diversity within the franchise. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. We appreciate you making us your first listen every single weekday. Thank you so much for that. YouTube, anywhere you get your podcast, you can check us out anywhere and make us your first listen. We'll be back with you tomorrow to preview the Toronto Raptors game and then take you into the weekend. Have a great rest of your day.
It wasn't my fault, Mom.